Welcome in, everybody, to Fantasy Pros. This is the Fantasy Baseball Podcast. It is me, Joey P. Joe Pizzapia. With me is Insider the Welsh. That's right. He's now an MLB insider because he's down there in spring training on the fields. He's shagging flies. He's getting tan. And we've got a great guest for you today from CBS. My dude, Frank Stampfl, is going to join us. And today, baseball is back. When last we left you, it was a somber tone. Paul Sporer and the Welsh were in quite a dust-up. It was very reminiscent of Jose Bautista and Rougned Odor going at it. We didn't think baseball was happening. We've come back here this week now with a fresh attitude. Are you going to say I took it on the chin? Oh, okay. No, you're saying I take it on the chin. I'm Bautista. I took it on the chin?
I think not because you took it on the chin, just because Paul Sporer was swinging. Paul Sporer was swinging, and he was basically didn't care what he was swinging at.
He was just swinging at the air, just at nothing.
He was swinging at the air, and he would say, "Go ahead, you talk," and then he would swing again at you. And I felt like that's kind of why he has to be Odor in this. Not that you couldn't throw a punch, Welsh. I believe you're a big, strong guy. But anyway, we've got transactions to talk about. We got injuries to talk about. We have got draft day bargains to talk about. Frank Stampfl, I am so grateful to have you on the show. Everybody knows Frank. Frank is super famous. He hosts, obviously, the Fantasy Baseball Today pod over at CBS. Frank, how are you feeling now that baseball is back?
Oof, relieved, but also overwhelmed. There is so much going on right now in the baseball world, so we're reacting to it in real time. All these trades, signings, Tatis, motorcycles, everything's going crazy right now, but I'm happy to be here. Two of my favorite people in the industry, and I really do mean that. I'm not just saying it.
Are you...
And the Welsh, my guys.
Are you allowed to have that beard with that hat on? I thought there was a Yankee rule where you can't have that Roogie beard. I'm pretty sure you got to shave that off, Frank.
Honestly, I was growing it out until baseball was back, and now I just kind of like it. So
you look kind of Roogie. I think Frank might be throwing the punches here. It's a Fantasy Pro sandwich with CBS in the middle. Gotta love it. Love Frank.
I do kind of see the Roogie thing he's got.
Yeah, you see it's kind of Roogie. Yeah.
Yeah, and this is why you have to subscribe to the YouTube channel, Fantasy Pros MLB channel, specifically because I feel like when he takes the cones off, the headphones off, the hat, the beard, everything comes with it. It's like a whole thing. He just puts it on for the show, and he takes it off.
Frank, punch your microphone, please. Please punch your microphone so we can really make sure if you're Roogie.
Oh, before we start throwing haymakers here, I want to remind everybody we got a giveaway for you, fantasypros.com/MLB contest. We are giving away an Austin Riley autographed jersey. Not too shabby right there. Braves breakout star of 2021. Well, guess what? You can have that autographed jersey thanks to our friends at Pristine Auction. All you have to do is subscribe to our Fantasy Pros YouTube channel, youtube.com/fantasypros MLB. Again, MLB channel. It's where you're going to find leading off every single morning with me and the Welsh and friends. Welsh loves the friends part.
Ooh, I like that. Joe Welsh and friends. That's great.
It wasn't. See, you got upgraded. You were just friends.
I do.
Now it's and Welsh and friends. So there you go.
That makes me happy.
After that, all you got to do is screenshot that bad boy, go to fantasypros.com/contest and enter to win that Austin Riley autographed jersey. And don't forget about our Discord channel too. We're going to be having stages on there. We're going to be taking your MLB questions. So that's going to be happening. I'm going to be running a couple of those very soon. I think in the next week or so, we're going to kick those off with your draft questions, your trade questions. That's fantasypros.com/chat. Free to join, but you upgrade, you get access to all of our premium channels there, including those stages, which are so useful for everybody. And I cannot stress enough how great our Discord community is too. It's a really strong group of fantasy players, fantasy enthusiasts, fantasy insane maniacs, and I love them all, our peanuts and cracker jacks. So let's get kicking here, and let's start off with the big news. Fernando Tatis Jr. may have surgery, may not have surgery. I don't know. Frank, you are our guest today. Welsh already failed us because he saw Fernando Tatis' brother, and he didn't ask him what the deal is. You're already a failure today. You're a failure today, Welsh. So I'm going to go to you instead, Frank. Tatis, this news obviously huge. Let's say he does have the surgery. Let's live in that hypothetical world. He could miss all the way up and not be back until June. Where does this bump Fernando Tatis down in your redraft rankings right now?
Yeah, so I'm currently ranking him as if he is going to have surgery and miss all that time. So I moved him down to 17 in my shortstop rankings, which sounds like a massive drop. It is. I mean, he was my number one overall player, and rightfully so. Even last year dealing with the shoulder injury, he was fantastic. He was like the 5th overall player in Roto, regardless of that. So I got him just behind Willy Adames and Dansby Swanson, just ahead of Jake Cronenworth and Chris Taylor. We did a mock draft last night, and he went 85th overall. So I think he's kind of
we're
somewhere
ahead
in
of
that
him.
like 80 to 120 range right now overall. And it's just a tough situation because it's a fluid situation. There's details coming out. We don't know if he's going to have the surgery, but if he does, that's where I have him ranked as of now.
That's where I have him too. I moved him down. I think he's at 90 overall or somewhere there. Also, I think I have him at shortstop 16 or 15 overall. I can't remember exactly where, but I moved him basically behind Bobby Witt Jr. because I think that's my threshold. It's, do I want to take a full season of the rookie who I really believe in, or half a season of Tatis? I think I want the rookie because I want the games. I want the volume. It's one thing in season-long roto, but Welsh, these head-to-head leagues, this kind of a time miss can absolutely crush you. So where have you had to adjust with Tatis, and what's your instincts tell you here? If you got a draft coming up this weekend, you kind of have to make some hard choices here.
Yeah, no, I'm with you guys. I did kind of the same thing. I want to say I've got him at like 86, 87. I also put him right below Witt. And actually in the Discord, there's a private little Chris Welsh AMA room, and our boy LC had asked this exact question. And I said the same thing. I said, listen, at this point, I believe Bobby Witt Jr. is going to start the year. He's been working third base with the majors. There's an incentive now for teams to have these guys be on the opening day roster. Makes all the sense in the world. So, 2.5 months. I mean, we're talking like okay scenario is probably 2, maybe just under. Worst case scenario could be 3 months into the season or even beyond. I mean, what if there's also like a shoulder surgery and what that takes away? That old adage, the juice worth the squeeze. He's awesome when he's out there, but the time missed, even if it's roto, even if it's counting on the back end, I think, a best ball or something is completely different. But I'm not super interested, though. I do acknowledge this one thing, is that when I get into drafts, because someone asked me about this, I do feel like probably after the 4th round, he's going to be on my radar. You're going to see his name. Another one, I don't think we're going to talk about him, but, Ronald De Cunha didn't exactly get the most rousing endorsement this past week. We talked about him last week, Joe, in, hey, if we're missed games, blah, 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 that's not happening. And then they came out and said they hope he's back by May. It could be late May. So Ronald Acuna is in a similar situation that you're going to be into the 3rd round and you might see Acuna and Tatis on your draft board. It's going to be enticing. Let somebody else be the one that does the overreach, because to Frank's point, like when he said Dansby and Willie Adames, those sound gross. Those sound super gross. Like, bleh. But the production you're going to get from them for 3 months is anything with very little risk compared to what you have with Tatis. So the sad, unfortunate news is I think we got to dump him down past 75, and then, God willing to you in the format you play in and how you can cover for him if you want to jump in.
I could see on Frank's face that he was not happy about your disparaging of Willie Adames.
I like Willie Adames, but like, blah. Like, who wants Willie Adames as like your top guy?
Frank, save it for the draft day bargains. Frank, save it for that. Don't worry, you can unleash on Welsh later. Let's talk about Matt Olson. Matt Olson, apparently on the move, and the Oakland A's are making moves. Matt Olson moves to the Atlanta Braves, a better home ballpark certainly for him, and then they signed him to an 8-year extension. Not too shabby. I mean, Matt Olson, 40 dingers last year, 100 and 100. It's a pretty darn good player, and now all of a sudden he is moving to the Atlanta Braves. And Frank, I was looking, and the prop for him was 30-1 to lead the league in home runs. I was jumping on that yesterday. I think that's a fantastic one. But from a fantasy standpoint here, this means that Freddie Freeman's not coming back. So how do you unpack this here for Matt Olson, this move that the Braves made?
Yeah, I think overall it's a net positive, right? He moves to a seemingly better ballpark, a better lineup around him as well. Interestingly enough, you look on StatCast, you scroll down, they show how many home runs he would hit in each ballpark, right? So last year he hit 39 home runs overall. And if he played all of his games in Atlanta and all of his batted balls were hit the exact same way, he only would have had 34 home runs. So I found that interesting. Overall, I still think it's a better park shift for him. It's a better lineup around him. He was awesome last year. He made huge strides in terms of strikeout rate against left-handed pitching, and that's really what afforded him the ability to break out and have the best season of his career. However, I worry about guys changing leagues, especially players that are being drafted this early too. I mean, his ADP is in the middle of the 3rd round right now, and that skill set as well. I get it, the power, it's enticing, but in a categories league, I'm typically looking for some kind of speed in my first 3-4 rounds. In a points league, I'm probably looking for pitching at that point. So he's just not a skill set that I typically target in, that part of the draft. And I do worry that there could be a transition period here going from the American League to the National League. We saw it with Francisco Lindor. Honestly, we've seen it with a bunch of stars basically as long as we've been playing this game. So I worry a little bit for Matt Olson. I'm not going to be the one drafting him in the third round.
All right, Welsh, are you going to be the one drafting him in the third round? It seems like, 35, 95, 95 is a pretty good bid. That sounds like a pretty great third round player to me.
Yeah, Frank said it pretty much how I would have said it as well. Like, I actually think this is a good positive for the support that's around. I think there's a higher RBI opportunity. Right. There's a lot of just offensive support that's across this team. Much different team, Oakland to the Atlanta Braves. But from a roster construction standpoint, that's not when I'm looking at first baseman. I pass on Matt Olson all the time. If he were to fall, I'd be interested. He's not going to fall because now he's a Brave. He's gotten out of Oakland and he's going to be a Brave. And Frank's also right. There's a transitional thing. Another guy to throw in there, Manny Machado from a couple years ago. We see that transitional change. I think this could be a little bit different. But, you say that and you go and look at Manny Machado and all the guys they had around that. He had the same thing. He's just not, as fun as he is, he's not in that target range. I love Pete Alonso, but kind of same thing. I like that big in power, but I would like it to fall a little bit, and Olson does not, and the trade is not going to change anything. So net positive, I agree with. Draft target due to his cost, probably not for me.
Shout out to Pete Alonso, too. Car flips 3 times in an accident, and he walks away from it.
He kicked the windshield out?
Man, he's a tough SOB. Pete Alonso, ladies and gentlemen. That's my dude right there. All right, there were some trades, too. The Mariners acquired outfielder Jesse Winker and third baseman Eugenio Suarez from the Reds. They got Justin Dunn, Brandon Williamson, Jake Fraley back, Welsh. What do you make of this trade here? Obviously, the Reds are shedding a ton of salary. Who knows if Castillo is next, but Jesse Winker and Suarez, 2 players that we've liked in fantasy over the years, in different years, certainly. Last year, Winker was tremendous, but now you're moving him out of Cincinnati. What are your thoughts here on what this does to their fantasy value?
Yeah, it's funny. When Winker was in the minors, his big thing was he was like a high contact hitter who really struggled to find his power in the minors. Then when he came up, he had these short little bursts where it was like, oh, he hit 8 homers and 150 at-bats, and we kind of got excited. Then he kind of found himself. I don't obviously love the ballpark change for him, but I still think this is an overall positive because the Reds, not a great team. It's a great ballpark. Seattle's not going to be playing in Seattle for every single game, just half of them. I like the team. I like the team construction. I like it's being aggressive. He's going to hit right in the middle of the order. If you get bounce backs from guys like Jared Kelenic, you got a running team. Our RBI, I think there's better RBI opportunity in Seattle than there is in Cincinnati, but I think it's kind of like middle line. Like, I don't see the reason to really dump him off because of a tiny bit of a power tick down where I think run and RBI opportunity can be there. So it's a flat line for me.
And Frank, your Yankees acquired Josh Donaldson and Isaiah Kiner-Falefa for Gio Urshela and Gary Sanchez. What are your thoughts on this one? Because Josh Donaldson in New York City, to me, is not a good marriage in terms of the media and what I know of Josh Donaldson. So I think this is it makes sense on paper, but I'm a little worried about this one in practice, or is it just get Gary Sanchez out of town?
Oh, as a Yankee fan, I was ecstatic that I don't have to watch Gary Sanchez try to catch balls. He didn't really do much catching, actually, but so from a pure Yankee perspective, I'm fine with the move. It kind of caught me off guard. It's didn't really think that they needed to upgrade third base. They get their stopgap shortstop because obviously they're very excited about the prospects that are coming. Anthony Volpe, the shortstop of the future there. So they get, likely 1 year out of Isaiah Kiner-Falefa. Donaldson, I already liked for fantasy because it felt like he was undervalued. He's going around pick 200, according to FantasyPros ADP. And he was really good last year. He hit around 250, 26 home runs, 827 OPS. He still walks a lot. Strikeout rate is decent. And now the team context and the ballpark is much better. So now moving over to the Yankees, I think we're going to start to see a little bit of a tax. I think he moves up probably like 30, 40 spots in ADP, but I'd still be willing to take him there, especially with the third base position looking as bad as it is. So if you miss out on Chris Bryant and Anthony Rendon and Alex Bregman and those guys going in the middle round, I think Josh Donaldson is a great fallback option. And then Kiner-Falefa, if you play in a deeper roto categories league, I think he could be like a 10 homer, 280 hitter, 20 plus steals. And again, the context for the team is really good. So if you do play in a deeper format and you need some speed late, I think IKF is fine. I'm glad you brought him up because I wanted to talk about him because I almost put him in the next section of what we're going to talk about when we're kind of talking about bargains, not just to poke at Paul Sporer and our ongoing Isaiah Kiner-Falefa beef or anything like that, but because this is a guy that is going to stay on the field.
He can run if the team is going to allow him to run. He's going to get that every day. And his position eligibility is going to work in his favor where, I mean, Josh Donaldson get hurts all the time. He can move over to third. The thing we don't know 100%, but what if he got some catcher run again and he got that eligibility into the season? That was what was so enticing about him in Yahoo last year, that I think the steal potential could uptick. And you actually, I think, gave a pretty aggressive line. If he were 10-ish homers, 20 stolen bases, he's probably, I think I saw some of the roster resource depth charts like around, I think, 7 or 8 or something like that. You're going to get run opportunity. He's going to be kind of devoid in RBI. I think post like 250 or wherever he is, he's kind of I don't know if I want to go as far as bargain. That's why I didn't put him in, but I think he's close to that. If you're looking for a little bit deeper league in a middle infield for an uptick in stolen bases, and I don't know, God knows, man, he could jump into a little bit more power. Maybe he gets pushed up in the lineup if there's injuries. I mean, there's a lot of possibilities with him, and his position eligibility is really going to help, and he might get some more spots with the Yankees.
A 1-year deal for Nelson Cruz for the Nationals. This makes sense to me, guys, because if you're the Nationals, you give Soto some support there for a few months, and then you trade him off, and basically you spent money to get prospects, right? I mean, Welsh, that's pretty much what this Cruz deal is, isn't it?
Well, I mean, I think on paper for us is what it looks like, but he mentioned that the reason he came here was because he was sold maybe a bill of goods, but he was sold that the team still plans to make more moves, that they still plan to make this team competitive. And I know, yeah, I could see that. Oh, that smug, like, all right, like look, that you just gave
Robert De Niro face on this one.
But I would say this though, so many more of the fringe teams are. That's a really good Robert De Niro, by the way. That looks like face swap Robert De Niro. If there was ever a reason besides my baseballism Ken Griffey 8-bit hat to look at, is Joe's De Niro face right now. But the fringe teams in each division are more palatable to potentially jump in to the playoffs now with expanded, that I don't think the Nationals, I don't think it's silly. It's regardless of us looking at the dumb roster, but look at the pitching that they have. This is a team that is kind of pot committed to make a stab at it unless they can unload. And guess what? They showed us they're not going to take a stab at it because they signed Nelson Cruz. I think they still got a bullet or two to make, and I think they're going to make a run. So you say trade candidate. If they lose and Corbin is back to 2 pitches and both unsuccessful and Strasburg back on the IL, okay, yeah, then Cruz is absolutely going to get probably slung over to the Padres or something like that. But I don't know. Nelson Cruz's words to me make it seem like he's going to be there for a bit, and I like the move.
All right, Frank, we've got left-handed pitcher Carlos Rodon signing a 2-year deal with the New York Giants. I've been in football all day. The San Francisco Giants for $44 million. So obviously a spectacular season for Carlos Rodon last year, especially the first half. It was actually fantastic. Then a little bit of missed time, a little bit of regression, which was going to happen because he was so far off the chart. And this is one I struggle with, Frank, because the Giants have had a really good history of plucking some of these guys and them continuing or having success there for the first time. So does the fact that the Giants went after him and that group specifically give you cautious optimism for his value this year and maybe beyond?
Yeah, so I actually really like the circumstances here for Carlos Rodon. Not only signing with the San Francisco Giants, they've done great work with really not just pitchers, but hitters as well. I mean, they've just done fantastic the past couple of years with Brandon Crawford and Evan Longoria and Brandon Belt and Buster Posey getting as much as they can out of those guys. But most recently, Kevin Gausman, Drew Smyly was really good there as well. They got a lot out of Alex Wood. And now Carlos Rodon jumps into the mix. I love the contract that they gave him. To me, that was more than anything else here, is the fact that they were okay committing $44 million over 2 years when he wasn't even given the qualifying offer by the Chicago White Sox. So I always found that curious. The White Sox didn't give it to him. And then another team goes out, and what I consider a pretty smart team in the San Francisco Giants, they go out and they give him 2 years. In each year is worth more than that qualifying offer. And on top of that, he was just ridiculous last year. So there's a lot of moving parts here. He dealt with the shoulder injury. It's been an issue for him, all throughout his career. Velocity was down over his final 4 starts. He was down at 92, 93, whereas for most of the season, he was around 96. I'm with you, Joe. I mean, he's a tough one for me to figure out. I've been much lower on him basically all offseason. I have moved him up, but not enough. I think there's always going to be someone in a draft who likes Carlos Rodon more than me. And as a result, I'm probably not going to wind up with a lot of him.
Clayton Kershaw goes back to the Dodgers, 1 year, $17 million. Is important for the Dodgers too. And Welsh, this also feels like, as we get the Trevor Bauer news, that there's going to be an investigation there. This seemed like just a smart thing for all parties to come to an agreement there. What are your thoughts on Kershaw this year in terms of I know last year you were somebody I remember talking to that was, very pro drafting Kershaw. I was still on the fence about it. So are you ready to go down that well again this year?
Yeah, absolutely. I think this is one of the best case scenarios you could possibly have. It's a situation for lots of wins. It's a team he's familiar with. There's no transitional period. It's a great offense. Still to be seen if they are going to spend more. You don't love that the Dodgers, well, you could look at it both ways. I was going to say, you don't love that the Dodgers might occasionally throw in a 6-man rotation or a deep bullpen or something like that, but that actually works in favor of a guy like Kershaw. You don't have to hate the idea of him having an occasional start skipped or, maybe him going only 5 or something like that, because you want him to be clean. You want him to be healthy, and you want him to be able to make through. I mean, can you really count past 150? I think it's the best case scenario when he pitches, and this is like a big key for me with a lot of guys. I know we get bogged down and we kind of say the same things. We're like, oh, that guy's, blah, 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 never going to draft him. Jacob deGrom, just not going to touch him, never going to draft him. He's never going to be healthy. We always do that stuff. But like when Kershaw is going, he's one of the best. Now, if it's only for 130 innings and it gets you at a critical time, that sucks. But guess what? Cost? Mwah! It's a beautiful cost right now. So I'm all for it. And, I'm not really sure if it is like dictating what's going on with Bauer, though the Bauer thing is like continuously getting
well, I
messy
think
again.
If you're the Dodgers, you want to cover yourself and make sure you have somebody in that third spot in that rotation, because after the third spot, you've got guys you're optimistic about, that you hope things go well, but you're not exactly sold on everybody there at 4 and 5. So I think every rotation's like that. I mean, the Mets are like that. And when speaking of the Mets, you're talking about Clayton Kershaw, who is number 38 overall in terms of pitchers on Fantasy Pros. 37 is Chris Bassett, who is now a New York Met, part of the Oakland jettisoning of players. So this is another really important one because of the Jacob deGrom potential health issues, right, that are looming over everyone who drafts him this year. Max Scherzer at the top of that rotation with him is great, but really, you had a knee surgery for Taijuan Walker. You had Carlos Carrasco was not healthy all year last year. So getting somebody to stabilize this rotation, I mean, to me, Chris Bassett is a slam dunk. Last year, 157 innings. He had 12 wins, 159 Ks, 39 walks, 3.15 ERA, a 106 whip. Frank, what do you think of this Chris Bassett addition to that Mets rotation?
Yeah, so overall, I think he's annually undervalued. He's got a 3.23 ERA since the start of 2018. That is 15th among qualified starting pitchers. But you dig a little bit deeper and you look at the career splits, and I kind of worry about Chris Bassett. Not that he's moving to a much worse ballpark, but Oco really is one of the best places to pitch in baseball. So in his career, a 2.58 ERA in Oakland, a 4.34 ERA on the road. So again, another one moving from the AL to the NL, universal DH now. I wonder if there's a bit of a transition period. I think he's fine where he's going, but much like he's going to stabilize the Mets rotation, I think that's what you're relying on him to do in your fantasy rotation, right? I mean, he's a stabilizer. I don't think that he has like tremendous upside or anything. He's fine. I worry a little bit about a transition period for him as well.
Let me ask real
who
quick.
Do you want? Wait.
Yeah, you're going to do what I was going to do. Yep.
I'm going to do it. I'm going to do what you were going to do. Who do you want? Chris Bassett or Clayton Kershaw? They're right back in ADP. Let's go.
I will take the upside of Clayton Kershaw. On a per start basis, I still think he's better. Swinging strike rate was the best of his career last year. Like, we're talking about a Hall of Famer, like perennial Cy Young contender. And his swinging strike rate was actually the best it's ever been last year. So I'll take him, but it's close.
It's funny, Welsh, because if you look around, the ERA for Bassett was better. The strikeouts were more because he threw more innings. But you're right. In a head-to-head, I think I would take Kershaw because of start-by-start. In Roto, I think it's more of a discussion. I'd probably take Kershaw, but I know what you're doing, Welsh, right?
Yeah, no, I'm glad we were both like, well, it's funny. We have like 3 hosts here. We all have that host mindset where I'm like, no, let me ask this question because it's 100% what I was going to say is this is a really good one. In my own personal ranks, I've got Kershaw a couple SP spots higher than Bassett. And I like Bassett. I like the destination. Again, targeting, especially boring pitchers. A lot of like these boring, like Nathan Eovaldi, Charlie Morton. These guys are boring, but they're really good for teams, team construction. And Bassett is really good for that as well, going to a place where you're going to be able to stack on wins. But in both formats, I'm going to take Clayton Kershaw. You get the win format. He's also, I think, one of just the best pitchers when he's on. Health seems to be there. He was actually over at the Players Association training facility out here in Mesa for a couple days, getting some private work in as well. Seems healthy. So it is Kershaw on both fronts for me, but are we sweeping it, Joe? Yeah, you said you're taking Kershaw.
Yeah,
so we're all sweeping Kershaw.
Yeah, you know me. I'm a head-to-head dude. I don't go for this season-long stuff. Not for me. I need more action. But look, I mean, you're right. Start-by-start basis. He's Clayton Kershaw. He's a Hall of Famer, right? So I think that ADP is a little screwy right now. We'll see. We'll see how that changes things. Of course, with spring training on not only come signings, and there's still a lot of big guys out there, but also come injuries. So Zach Wheeler experiencing shoulder soreness during his throwing program in December, all the way back there. Jack Flaherty just got sent for medical evaluation on his right shoulder. So Welsh, you want to take one of these? How you feeling about some of these pitchers? I mean, this is the thing. I almost feel like we're getting to a point where it's 0 SP is going to be my new theory of drafting baseball teams. Like, the 0 RB theory is going to have to drag itself over. But what do you think?
Well, and also throwing Zach Gallen, who's Zach Gallen.
Gallen's
I think
another
some
one.
MCL
Yes,
issues, which I think he spoke on it today over at the Diamondbacks facility. I agree with you, but part of the thing I don't like is that with what you're saying, like a lot of the fun guys that you want to take kind of on that back end, those are the ones that seem to be struggling. Like not Wheeler, like Wheeler's kind of the elite range, but Flaherty has been a really kind of popular one for me when I start to really want to dip into that pitcher range. Like he's there and it's like, top SP1 upside. Now you take him off the board. 1000% Gallen is one of those guys as well. This is just a funny anecdotal thing, but I love to draft Blake Snell, and I also do my impersonation of him. Oh man, I got to get paid. This is Blake Snell here. I saw him yesterday, 2 days ago at the Padres facility, man.
In leading off Blake Snell one day.
Joey P, I swear to God, he talked like this yesterday. He's like, oh man, I got to go back in inside. So he's coming back, and someone wanted to talk to him, and he just got done throwing, and he goes, oh man, I got to go inside. I'm hot. I got hot out here. And he went inside because he was warm. And I was just like, come on, Blake, you warm? You're warm in Arizona? Like, I don't want to give him a soft rating or anything like that. But I like Blake. But beside the point, guys like Gallen and Flaherty, those are targets. Those are targets that I want. And now that you're getting, we're getting the repercussions of the lockout where players couldn't speak to any of their trainers. They couldn't speak with the organization to go through. I mean, Tatis is another example of that I do worry a little bit overall on pitching as we've been pumping them up. How many more guys, over the next week? How many more guys are we going to get? Like, a little sore arm over here, a little thing over here that I don't know if I've decided, is that a punt SP strategy or is that, oh my God, cling to the top guys, similar to what you're doing with closers, cling to the guys that right now, sans Wheeler, and then try not to dip your toes too far in, to like, oh, I'm going to build my rotation about all these other guys. Then you're going to get Darvish, Kershaw, and Gallen, and then you're going to have absolutely nobody pitching for you in June. So I don't know. I'm not sure if I'm going to punt.
Frank, how scared are you specifically of Wheeler too? Because last year was the big breakout. Now you got to pay the premium. So he is being drafted as a top guy because he performed like a top guy last year. Even though the track record has told you he's up and down for his career, now you throw in a potential shoulder issue. What does that do to his draft stock?
Yeah, so I lowered him I had him as my SP4 and I moved him down to SP12. So just behind Lucas Giolito and Aaron Nola. It might be an overreaction. I saw that he threw a bullpen yesterday. And then, curiously enough, we're doing this Tuesday, March 15th. They came out and said that now he has the flu, so he's not going to throw his next bullpen. So I don't know. It seems a little.
He's got the flu in his shoulder. That's the problem.
Right.
He's got that shoulder flu.
That happened with Chris Sale a couple of years ago. Remember, he was like sick, and then he needed Tommy John like a week later. Oh, that's funny how that worked out.
I had the same thing. I think Welsh, you remember, right? I had a stuffy nose, and next thing you do, I had a complete ACL redo. That's.
I thought you were going to say you're like, oh yeah, I had some sniffles, and then I broke my foot, and you're like, what? What's the correlation here? Well, so you said you have Wheeler at 12.
Yep.
You have Bieber ahead?
I have Bieber ahead of him, Sandy Alcantara, Julio Reyes, Lucas Giolito, and Aaron Nola. So just them at like the 3-4 turn in a 12-team league.
So how far off, and especially with some of the new news, would you consider is Robbie Ray in that category? I'm just curious, like, is Robbie Ray in that range where you go, there's too much fear with Wheeler right now that Ray in Seattle might be a better bet?
So he is the very next starting pitcher that I have ranked behind Zach Wheeler. And to me, that was like the cutoff where I'm still willing to take the health risk with Zach Wheeler, because I think that there's a bunch of just overall risk with Robbie Ray as well.
Not me. Give me Robbie Ray all day over Zach Wheeler right now. I am content. I did it in the last mock draft episode. If you remember Welsh, I was like, I'm good. Let's go. Robbie Ray can be my dude. I'm away from pitching.
You like those tight pants, I know.
I do. They got those tight pants on. All right. A couple other things to talk about before we shift gears to the draft day bargains, and we'll get to those guys in the second half of the show as promised. So no more 10-day IL. It's going to be the 15-day again, which I think is important. Welsh, how does that impact, in your opinion, transactions now? Because we all thought, oh, great, this is going to be a saving grace for baseball. We're going to get guys back faster. No. What happened was just everybody went to the IL all the time. Now that we're pushing it back to the 15, are we going to get a better version of fantasy because of that?
Oh boy. I mean, I don't know if that's necessarily going to be the case. I think you're going to have similar arguments. Now, okay, to one thing I just thought about is they also are limiting calling up and down. You can't do the Olivares thing where you have 347 call-ups in a season. You're going to be restricted to like 5. So maybe if you take that on top of like really need to be discerning the IL stints, it actually could a little bit more. The only thing I worry about is you've got, less of a spring that, especially maybe early on, I don't feel like that's necessarily going to be the case. I think teams are going to play it very safe early on. If there's anything lingering, I think they're going to throw guys out. You've got your minor leaguers that can come up. I'm just not sure you're going to see a better fantasy early. I think the opportunity for a better fantasy game is in the back half of the year as the playoff stretch comes in. There's more teams that are available to go. Call-ups and send-downs might be at a limited point. That I think that's the point where teams are going to be very discerning about IL stints. But I'd also throw out, like, how much is it going to piss you off if a team doesn't want to put a guy on an IL and they skip a start because he can't pitch because he's hurt, but they don't want to put on the IL for 15 days. And now all of a sudden you can't even do a pickup. So consider that, where if a team, like let's just say Kershaw, for example, he's got a little lingering thing, but they're like, we don't want to lose him for 2 weeks. We just want to push the start out. Right. So instead of where before IL stint, you get a free guy for 10 days. Now you won't, because they don't want to do that. So, it can go both ways.
These are the important conversations we're having here. Another one, too, is Toronto right now. If you're not vaccinated, you can't go play. Also, I just saw this come around, too. Unvaccinated players for the Yankees and Mets would not be eligible to play home games under the current COVID-19 rules in New York City. Now, those rules could change. But, Frank, as of right now, that seems like kind of a big deal to me. How about you? Trying to make your fantasy lineup? Don't you kind of need those guys?
Dude, what a mess. I'm wearing my TGFBI shirt right now and recently wrapped up the draft. And I think 2 of my first 3 picks were Fernando Tatis and Aaron Judge. So just a complete mess of a situation. And, it's developing right now. We'll see what happens. I mean, there was another report that the teams believe that this will be, quote, handled. The situation will be handled by opening day, which is...
That also makes me want to make Robert De Niro face.
That sounds like some New York... that sounds like some manhandling. The mafia, like, yeah, we're going to handle this. We're going to handle this COVID vaccine stuff. Let's go, Joey.
We'll talk. Yeah. Well, you and me, we'll work it out.
The problem is, like, there was a video. Someone asked Aaron Judge today if he was vaccinated, and his answer was like, it's a yes or no question, and he just kind of like beat around the bush, and he's like, we'll handle it. We'll get.
Look, I think we've all learned. Look, I don't want to make this is not a political show here. I'm just saying this is important to talk about from a fantasy perspective, because if you can't play Aaron Judge, because let's just use him as an example, if he's not right, this is an easy question. If you ask me, I say yes, I am. Right? It's very easy. And everyone who hems and haws. Typically, they either don't want to have a conversation about it for one reason or another. They don't want to stir up something, or they're not. So if I can't play Aaron Judge, I agree. I think it's going to be handled, but it's certainly something right now that under the current rules, it's something we have to talk about, because it can have a huge impact, especially in those daily transaction leagues, trying to move guys all over the place.
I think I heard Gio Urshela, and then he just got traded. You got to wonder, like, did that play a little bit of a role in that as well?
I doubt it, but it's not impossible. It's not impossible.
Oh, no.
Also, we have to use insider Chris Welsh, who was at the field today. He's got some breaking news. He tweeted it earlier, but you've got a prospect of the White Sox working out a different position. So this is why we love having Welsh on the show. He is Ken Rosenthal without the bow tie, or maybe he does. I don't know. I haven't seen. You could pull off the bow tie. I think right?
You think so?
Frank? You think Welsh could pull off the bow tie? I think. I think he could.
1,000.
I can't pull off
you know
a
what?
bow.
I'll try it sometime. If someone wants to send me a bow tie, like I'll pub some coming. Like I wish I could pull more things off. Like I barely think I can pull off hats. Like I've tried cowboy hats. It's awful. I don't think I'm a pull off type of guy.
Cowboy hats, no. Baseball caps, yes. Bow ties, yes. I think we can agree on that.
I did pull off some of that stuff.
Give us the inside scoop, because we might have a guy who, I don't say changing positions, but maybe might be getting a look this spring at a position.
Maybe, yeah. So I was over at the White Sox facility today. Got to see Chris Rose, by the way, who now with John Boy Media, and talk with him for a little bit. All the guys were out there. They were doing hitting drills, and they've got kind of a glut of corner infield, outfield players. They also just signed Josh Harrison, who was speaking with the media. And I go over to one of the side fields. There's like the big main fields, and there's kind of like a private. It's only an infield. A lot of the teams have these. The Diamondbacks have them, and it's just an infield. And working over there is Pavin Smith at first, and Andrew Vaughn at second base. And I was like, wait a minute. You know, because sometimes you get guys that just like go over to second during BP and they just do it. But no, this was 3 coaches working with Vaughn, talking him through each one, and they would hit it to Gavin that then could roll it over, you know, and Andrew Vaughn could play the full run. And I got some video of it. I tweeted it out. And after it was asked, someone asked, hey, are you going to be playing in the outfield this year? And he kind of hemmed and hawed a little bit. He's like, you know, we'll see where they want to play me. And then he goes, I just want to play wherever the coaches want me. And this is literally him coming off of running second base drills where they talked with him. They were doing full grounders. I mean, we were doing the full thing. So just something to consider out there, that I don't think they're stuck or they really know what position he's going to play. Doesn't sound like outfield might be the lock. And I think they're just trying to get position flexibility. But I think they got Leury Garcia there and Josh Harrison. But Andrew Vaughn working at second base. So keep an eye on that. Maybe some future flexibility or just major questions about, you know, how the hell they can get him in the lineup.
We've still got Freddie Freeman, Carlos Correa, Chris Bryant, and a host of other free agents yet to sign. So make sure you have our Fantasy Pros News Desk app on your mobile device so you know when all the breaking news happens, and that way you will stay up to date with this, all of it. Now let's talk a little.
Get your Welsh bombs.
Get your Welsh bombs.
Yeah. Is it the Welsh? Drop my Welsh bombs. Sorry.
That's right. Welsh bombs all over again. Hey, look, you got the good footage out there. He's out there in Arizona in the heat. He could stand it. Blake Snell cannot. Welsh is still out there.
Oh, man, it was so hot. Joey,
Man,
it was so hot, man.
Man,
I'm going to write a rap song about it.
Dang, it was so hot. Well, Frank, do you know how hot it was out there?
Getting hot in her.
Sounds
hot, Frank. All right, let's go with some draft day bargains right now. Frank, let's start with you. Who is a draft day bargain? We're going to do 10 of these, 5 each for the boys here. Give me your first one that you think is going a little later than he should, and you think is actually a good return on investment.
All right, I'm going to go with the old, boring veteran, Charlie Morton, who has an ADP of 86.2 and feels like he's just being undervalued because he's 38 years old. But you look at what he did last year, 3.34 ERA, 104 whip, over 200 strikeouts. And really, from 2017 on, he's been fantastic. 3.34 ERA, 1.13 whip, well over a strikeout per inning. He did have that blip in the shortened 2020. He dealt with a shoulder injury, but he bounced back last year. Velocity was fine. Swinging strike rate was awesome. Back with the Atlanta Braves. Yes, he's coming back from the broken leg, but so far he's been good in training camp. He's been throwing bullpens, and I think that we're going to start to see his price actually rise a little bit. I think people were worried about, where's the health with Charlie Morton at his age? But I think as people start to see him healthy in spring games, he's probably even going to rise a little bit. So if you're drafting now, I would say try and get as much Charlie Morton as you can.
Charlie Morton, I feel better about than Zach Wheeler. I don't care. He broken leg and all. I feel more at ease with Charlie Morton towards the top of my rotation than I do Zach Wheeler. I don't know, maybe because I'm a Met fan and I've seen so much bad Zach Wheeler in my life. But where was this Charlie Morton in his 20s and early 30s? This is the thing I want to know, Frank. I mean, it is stunning, right? This was a guy who's, going 157 innings. He could barely strike out 125 guys. And then, as you were saying, 2017 happens. And ever since then, we're looking at 163 Ks, 201, 240, last year, 216. Just a stunning turnaround of a career so late.
Yeah, so he had a huge uptick in velocity. I think that the Houston Astros, I mean, they've done this with a few other pitchers, but they really just found a way to get the most out of him. And he's always had that ridiculous curveball too. So those things in conjunction together, I mean, this is the best that we've ever seen him pitch, really the twilight of his career. So yeah, the velocity and that big hook together, it's worked very well for Charlie Morton. So I'm in.
SP26 on the board. Gimme. I'm all over it. All right, Welsh, give me your first guy for a draft day bargain.
So I've actually kind of teetered around with this guy because there's this guy, and then I kind of think there's another version of him 40 picks later, which makes him an even better bargain. But just follow me here. The guy I picked, kind of trying to follow Frank's model as well of like little high, little medium, a little bit low. I kind of like how he did that with the bargains because bargains are completely different for all of us. But a draft day bargain, I feel like, is Eloy Jimenez, who we've talked about, Joe, just because this is a high 4 category player that you're getting into the 50s or the 60s. I believe he was 56 last I looked on the ECR on Fantasy Pros, and he can go even past
59
60.
today, Welsh, if you could believe it. I don't know what happened, but
yeah, I mean, he went down 3
today.
spots from when I last checked it, which is literally last night. But we're talking like mid 30 homers. You got the good runs on the RBI. Now, the difference, the guy I wanted to pick, and I kind of want to throw him in here because I want to make sure I didn't incept any brains here. Yeah, no, we're not talking about him. Is Franmil Reyes. Because Franmil Reyes, to me, is one of the most absolute power targets you need to have in your drafts. The problem he has is not every format, pretty much just Yahoo, is he going to qualify at outfield. If you get the outfield eligibility, then I think you're looking at like the cheaper bargain version of Eloy with a little bit of batting average risk, but he's util. So that's why I didn't jump onto it. You get more batting average and you get an actual fielder with Eloy right now, where Franmil, you're stuck to util. That takes away Ohtani. Or if you take Ohtani, you can't have Franmil. And that also takes Nelson Cruz, who's kind of a bargain. So I didn't mean to like add 2 in here, but I wanted it to be Franmil because it's like, holy crap, this is a solid 3 category, high category guy with a little sub of 4th. Eloy is 4 solid categories and probably one of the better offenses. And if he's healthy, he's still young. By the way, Eloy is younger than Franmil Reyes, which is like unbelievable to think about.
Eloy's still so young, and we haven't even scratched the surface of how good that kid is. And I think, last year people just kind of wrote him off because of the injury, I feel like, and he didn't talk about him. And Robert was all the buzz instead. But Jimenez is an incredible talent. I love Franmil too. I wish the run score was a little higher. It's the only thing. Like even a couple years ago when he had 37 bombs, he only scored 69 runs. And even last year, 30 dingers, 115 games, 57 runs scored. But I'm with you. I like both these guys. I want both of them on my team. And just to get an idea too, Franmil Reyes is at 113, overall in the ECR.
Oh, is he really? I thought I just looked, and I had him at 96. What am I looking at? Maybe I'm looking at
the ECR ADP consensus right now. That's where I'm at.
Okay, well, I see on the fantasy baseball rankings for mixed leagues, I see him at 96, regardless of the point. He's there. And you know what I look at Eloy as? I look at Eloy as the backstop to Jordan Alvarez. Like everybody wants Jordan Alvarez in the second round. Everyone's like, gimme 4 category. That's Eloy. Like Eloy was Jordan before Jordan was, and you can get that 30 picks later. And I want to prioritize speed as much as I can on the early front of drafts. So, let's say I get a top hitter. I'd like to get another speedy type of guy in the second round. I might start looking at starting pitchers and closers in the 3rd and 4th. And you might have Eloy sitting there in the 5th or 6th for you. I think I registered the absolute best bargain pick of him in TGFBI. I got the lowest of any in any single league at 93. It's an absolute steal. It's everything you want out of Jordan Alvarez, but just cheaper.
All right, Frank, give me another name on your list of draft day bargains.
All right, so I'm going to go with a first baseman, and he's part of a quartet, a group that I have dubbed the Profit Pocket. So these are just undervalued. All
like
4 of these.
Stable.
All 4 of these first basemen, in my opinion, are undervalued. It's Rhys Hoskins, it's Joey Votto, it's Josh Bell, and it's CJ Cron. And if I miss out on the Matt Olsons, which I'm very likely to do, Pete Alonso, this is typically the group that I target. And Rhys Hoskins, for him, it's really just been health. But when he's played, especially last year, he was very good. He hit 247, lower batting average. But if you play an OBP or any type of points league, Hoskins excels in that format. He hit 27 homers in 107 games. That is a 150 game pace of 37 homers, 99 RBI. I just think that he provides a similar skill set to what you're asking Pete Alonso or Matt Olson to do, and you're getting him about 60, 70 picks later. So give me the profit pocket. Give me Rhys Hoskins, Votto, Josh Bell. I think they're all undervalued right now.
I would agree with Hoskins too. I think it's unfair. I think the negativity surrounding him has lingered longer than it should have, because last year was a pretty darn productive season for him. All right, let's go to another one for your list, Welsh. Who you got?
In the ever, crazy chase of closers that we're doing this year, I'm trying to help the Fantasy Pros ECR. And if you draft early closers, just a hint, you're the ranker is probably going to be me that's going to like it. I drafted closers early in ours, and it was like, guess what? The Welsh likes your draft. And I'm like, oh, thanks, man. That's really cool. I'm trying to push those up because you got to get them, especially if it's roto. Head to head, you've got a little bit more wiggle room. There's so many question marks, and I'm not going to deny that there isn't a question mark with this guy simply because the team, but he performed well. And the closer I'm talking about, I see at least, and you can tell me if I'm wrong here, a 137 ECR right now of Jordan Romano with the Blue Jays. And the Blue Jays are going to be primed and ready for wins. And that is what you want. You want closers with stability. You want closers with great stuff, obviously, and you want closers on teams that are going to put him in save situations. So where people are paying up sickly for Mark Melancon with the Diamondbacks, where he might save 10 by the time the trade deadline comes because the Diamondbacks are going to be atrocious, a guy like Jordan Romano is cheaper. He's not being drafted as a top 5 closer. He's more likely than not going to be outside the top 100. If you got a league that's, pushing up closers, it might change. I've seen people take Gallegos ahead of him. I think Romano is a super, super value closer if you don't want to pay the high price, or if you do pay the high price. ATC, Ariel Cohen's projection system, has him projected at 28 saves, 5 wins. You're looking at 11.5K per 9 on one of the better teams in the league, and they got pitchers that can take him deep. I like Jordan Romano. I think in a crazy closer market, he is a target, and he's a bargain.
Now, we teased this earlier. Frank Stampfl, this is your opportunity to defend the honor of Willie Adams, and I am right behind you.
So I like him. I like him. Just
no, you don't. No, you don't. Don't pretend. Stop.
You want him as your guy?
Ahead,
He's my guy.
I like Willie Adams.
Yeah. I am in. The ADP on Willie Adames, 136.8. Would not surprise me one bit if he outperforms Carlos Correa, who's going 50 spots ahead of him right now. As a member of the Rays, Adames hit 219 with a 624 OPS at home. And he spoke about how he couldn't see the ball in Tropicana Field, and it really affected him. He hit 291 with an 858 OPS everywhere else while he was a member of Tampa Bay. Then last year, 99 games with the Brewers, he basically just picked up where he left off when he was on the road. He hit 285, 20 homers, 4 steals, and 886 OPS. And from the point that he joined the Brewers on May 22nd on, here's where he ranked among shortstops: 7th in batting average, tied for 3rd in home runs, 4th in OPS. So maybe I'm just trusting a small sample size thing. It's right around 100 games, but regardless, I like the ballpark. I like the lineup. They've lengthened it. They've added Andrew McCutchen, and just overall a lot of players there that I like. Colton Wong, Luis Arias, I like him there too. Christian Yelich, if he can bounce back. So I'm buying the adjustments, how great he was with the Brewers. Ballpark lineup, give me Willie Adames.
And let me throw in this as well. With all the jokes aside, Willie Adames, what could be a winning strategy is if you want to reach a little bit to ensure yourself to get Fernando Tatis Jr.
I was just going to say Willie the same
Adames.
Thing.
Yeah, no, you get Willie Adames, you get Dansby Swanson, or if you really screw up, you get Brandon Crawford. That's how you cover yourself if you want to take Tatis earlier than the rest of your league mates. Beware, it might not happen, but they are the prime. That's the prime guy to pair with Fernando Tatis.
Took the words right out of my mouth.
Gotcha.
Exactly. Once again, we're in lockstep. So now that Welsh went to go get his Willie Adames shine box, you can come back and give us another player here, because I'm with Frank. Let's go. Willie Adames all day.
My number 3, I actually talked about it last week. Going through, it's really hard trying to find like your best bargains, but I'm going to just kind of come back to a guy that we talked about in last episode, or with Spore, the Spore episode, where you had said like, who's the next Cedric Mullins? And that's like a really big undertaking and task. But I had mentioned this guy from July to September had the 6th most hits in baseball during that period. 7, I believe it was 6 homers, 7 stolen bases, or 7 and 8. Amed Rosario with the Guardians. I just think post 200, a guy that's got 20 stolen base potential, 15 plus homer potential. He had a great end of the season as far as hits. He might be at the top of a lineup with guys hitting behind him like Jose Ramirez and Franmil Reyes. I think he's a bargain, and I think he's a target, especially when you're trying to play around with stolen bases. Depending how you did earlier in draft, guys like, I almost put Andrew Benintendi on this list, but I kind of like Amed Rosario just like a notch higher. Position flexibility, you're probably going to get shortstop and outfield. And, bad things could happen. You might not get the great counting stats, but I don't know. I think worst case scenario, you're probably touching the 20 stolen bases. Power, that'll be a major question, but people are paying like top 100 almost for Miles Straw, and I know he's elite stolen bases, but Ahmed Rosario kind of covers you. He's a little bit more of a 5-tool player, so post 200 Ahmed Rosario, draft day bargain in my eyes.
That's another good one. All right, Frank, back to you. Who's number 4 on your list of draft day bargains?
So I'm going with Lourdes Guriel. He's got an ADP of 140.2, and he's been very inconsistent throughout the course of his career. Same thing last year. He got off to a slow start. First 2 months, he hit 249, just 4 homers, 632 OPS. Turns out he was actually playing through a knee injury from June on. He hit 291, 17 homers, and 867 OPS, hitting the ball much harder. He was doing a better job lifting the ball during that time. He makes a lot of contact. That was even better last year, right around a 19% strikeout rate. And he showed us glimpses, right? So in 2020, he was awesome. Shortened season, 308 batting average and 882 OPS. And he's really the last opportunity to grab an everyday starting player in one of the best lineups in baseball with the Toronto Blue Jays. And I think he's going to hit right in the middle of that lineup. Lots of RBI opportunities. Maybe not a ton of power. You're talking about like 25 to 28 homers. But if he does that and hits for the good batting average, the counting stats are going to be awesome as well. So Lourdes Guriel, I'm in at the ADP 140.2.
Good offensive ecosystems are important. It's important in football. It's important in baseball. Toronto's one of them. Last year was the first year he got 500 at-bats too. So like 141 games from Guriel, that's what you want to see again. If you can repeat that number of games, you're looking at, I think, another 20 home runs, 80 RBI. And like you said, maybe there's room for even more potentially. He had 276 last year. If you can get closer to that 308 number in 2020, man, what a value he would be in the 140 range right now on Fantasy Pros. The Welsh, number 4 on your list of draft day bargains, is a pitcher.
Yeah, this is a guy that I just seem to be targeting a whole lot, and he was kind of an anomaly last year, and it's John Gray, who is with the Texas Rangers now. What a difference of ballparks you're going to go through from Colorado to Texas. You've got a lot of offensive support, great defensive support, I think, as well. And he's the anomaly because he was worse on the road than he was at home. He was able to maintain a 4 ERA in Colorado, where he was 5 on the road. Really bad run support as well. That, I don't know, I think you get him in Texas. You get him to be the lead dog. He was really keeping the home run ball down. Even in Colorado, I think he had a home run rate. What was it? It was 1.27 per 9, which is solid. He was a little bit walk heavy, but I like the destination change. He's a number 1 starter, going to get more starts in there. If they pick up some cheap wins, I mean, think about the division as well. Oakland is just going to be tanking it out.
Right.
John Gray, I think, is a bargain at almost 250 to round out your rotation.
I got John Gray shares everywhere. I think it's a great value because it doesn't cost you anything to find out. Nope. If he has a good April, awesome. Maybe you found a gem here and he's been able to turn things around, at very least be an innings eater kind of guy for you. And if he's terrible, you cut him in April and you move on to the next
prospect pitcher. Go get like Nick Lodolo or Hunter Green if he didn't get drafted. Those guys are probably going to break camp. So
Exactly. And a great point too about how Oakland is starting to jettison players also. All right, back to you, Frank. Give me the last guy on your list of draft day bargains.
All right, I'm going to save the best for last. My favorite breakout candidate this entire fantasy baseball season, it is Patrick Sandoval, who was inserted into the Angels rotation on May 17th last year. He made 14 starts. During that time, 3.39 ERA, 1.18 whip, 86 strikeouts over 79 and 2/3 innings pitched. His 15.3% swinging strike rate in those 14 starts, second best in baseball, behind only Corbin Burns. So the swing and miss is filthy, and a lot of it has to do with this changeup that he has. It posted a 139 batting average against with a near 29% swinging strike rate on that changeup alone. So he's got to work on the fastball command. He struggles a little bit with walks. Slider is a serviceable pitch. I think the repertoire is there. He's coming off of a stress reaction in his back. So there are some question marks. There's a reason why he's going outside the top 200 picks, but if he could stay healthy, put everything together, I mean, I think there's legit like top 20 starting pitcher upside here for Patrick Sandoval.
I love when we bring in analysts and they all say the same thing. So we had Fast and Pollock on a couple weeks ago. They were talking about Sandoval. We've got Paul Sporer on last week talking about Sandoval, and now Frank Stampfl talking about Sandoval. So Welsh, do you like Sandoval too? I just want
sure. Why not? Let's go all in.
Everybody, all of us, we're going to all hold hands with the Patrick Sandoval. But look, if they can get 30 starts out of him, and Ohtani's very good again, and maybe Syndergaard bounces back, maybe we finally get some of those Angels guys finally into the playoffs. That'd be nice. All right, Welsh, give us your last guy on your list.
Let's turn this hat around. Let's get serious here for a minute. Let's turn this around on baseballism. I'm going with a rookie at 289 on the ECR, a guy that I think legitimately can break camp with their team, and it's not Bobby Witt Jr. It is Spencer Torkelson. Spencer Torkelson, whom Miguel Cabrera was just asked in camp the other day about playing first base, and he was just like, I don't know. He's like, I don't care. I will play DH because I want Torkelson in the lineup. You hear Miguel Cabrera say, I want Torkelson in the lineup now. Add incentives to baseball for a guy to break camp on the opening day roster to get extra picks if they finish in the top 2 of Rookie of the Year. And guess what's really interesting? Bobby Witt and Spencer Torkelson sure would seem like likely candidates to finish 1 and 2 if they do. Though I do think Riley Green is a guy who's just as worthy of breaking camp. Torkelson is like, he's not a big, crazy strikeout guy. He didn't do it in the minors last year. He was sub 25%, which you want. He can walk. He's had some struggles with like low end breaking pitches kind of since he was at ASU. It was the first time I saw him at ASU versus Nick Gonzalez just before the pandemic hit. But Torque has got insane raw power, insane 30, 35 plus home run power. You don't know what the adjustments are going to look like. They could be a little bit wonky, but they got Candelario that can play third. Torkelson that was playing third, but he's a natural. He's a Gold Glove, natural third first baseman. He can play that spot. And you might be throwing him in at 5 or 6 in the Tigers lineup early on to break camp. So I think when you talk about speculation, what better thing to do than to speculate on Torque at this point, this late in the draft? Even though rookies can be a little bit dicey, that's like a pros pro type of guy. Like this guy is ready. He is bat ready with a position that's there with a decent amount of support, at least leadership that's around him. So I like speculating on Torkelson on the back end of drafts. Why not?
I agree. So the names on Welsh's list, Eloy Jimenez, Jordan Romano, Ahmad Rosario, John Gray, Spencer Torkelson. On Frank's list, Charlie Morton, Rhys Hoskins, Willie Adams, Lourdes Guriel, and Patrick Sandoval. Great stuff, guys. As always, you can follow our good friend Frank Stampfl over on the Twitter machine at roto_Frank and check him out on the Fantasy Baseball Today podcast. Frankie boy, so great to see you, my friend. And thanks for giving us some of your time today.
Well, thank you guys for having me again. Two of my favorites in the industry, the Welsh and Joey P together. Happy to do it, guys.
Love you, Frank.
And if you can't get enough Welsh and Joey P together, leading off 5 times a week, every weekday at noon, we're going to be doing that show live on our YouTube channel at Fantasy Pros MLB. So subscribe today to that so you can be in on that. Very exciting stuff. And of course, since you subscribe to our MLB channel, you might as well enter that contest to win an Austin Riley autographed jersey at fantasypros.com/MLB contest and join our Discord at fantasypros.com/chat. And make sure you look at possibly upgrading your membership with us too to get all those extra AMA channels and all the extra stages and things that you have access to. And don't forget to follow Is It the Welsh on the Twitter machine too, because obviously he's got all this fun breaking Arizona baseball. Welsh bombs all over the place, baby. I love being a good Welsh bomb.
I'm going to go to spring training game on Thursday, by the way. Just want to point out, I would be at the very first spring training game of the year, Diamondbacks and Rockies. I will be in attendance, and I am quite excited.
There you go. Welsh bombs all over the place. Go check him out there, too. That'll do it for us, but the story of the game goes on. For Welsh and Frank Stampfl, I'm Joey P. We'll see you next time, kids.
Thanks for tuning in to the Fantasy Pros YouTube channel. Don't forget to check out our featured videos. And while you're at it, make sure to follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at Fantasy Pros, so you can get the latest news and updates to give you the edge you need in your fantasy league.